Hi everyone, thanks for joining in today. I'm excited to have Vanessa McCausland joining me. Vanessa's joined me before, so really excited to have her back again.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, for those who don't know Vanessa studied English and Australian literature at the University of Sydney. She has worked as a journalist for 17 years, including as a news and medical reporter for the Daily Telegraph and entertainment reporter for MX newspaper. Her work has appeared in news.com.au, Mamma Mia, Body and Soul, and she's currently a weekend editor at kidspot.com.au. Vanessa lives in Sydney's Northern Beaches with her husband and daughter, and her latest book, which came out in December, is The Beautiful Words. Hopefully, you can see my copy, not disappearing too much. And just want to mention to people watching that if you do have a question for Vanessa, please type it in comments and I'll read it out. Thanks to HarperCollins, anyone who asks a question during the Facebook Live will have a chance to win a copy of The Beautiful Words. So thanks so much, Vanessa, for joining us. Before you start telling us a little bit about your book, just want to let everyone know I absolutely loved it. It was 5 stars for me. So, yeah, really, totally recommend it to everyone.
Oh, thank you. That's exciting.
Do you want to start off by telling us a bit about The Beautiful Words?
Yeah, sure. So The Beautiful Words is it's about my protagonist is named Sylvie, and she is a logophile, and that is a lover of words and stories, but she can't sort of find her own story. So she's living this quite reclusive, very quiet life, cleaning houses, after an accident robbed her of her memories as a teenager. And she's kind of just going along in her life. She's a little bit lonely, and she gets an invitation to her best friend from that time, Case's 40th birthday, on a tiny island off the coast of Tasmania. And so she's really intrigued because they haven't spoken for 23 years after this accident. And Sylvie lost her memory and she doesn't really know what happened and what happened between her and Case. And so she reticently sort of accepts, and she misses this amazing soul connection that she had with Case. So she goes to Tasmania, but she struggles to connect with these old friends because they're really successful, and Sylvie's like sort of a little bit, she's quite shy and unsure, and they remember her as this brilliant student and writer, and that really doesn't reconcile with how Sylvie sees herself now. Since the accident, she has to write everything down in a little book. She struggles with her short-term memory. She walks with a bit of a limp. And so, yeah, it's really awkward. Case is this incredibly accomplished author, and Sylvie's sort of cleaning houses and living this small life. But she meets on the island this taxi boat operator called Holden, and they bond over like this love of literature. They call each other Sylvie Plath and Holden Caulfield, and have this immediate and beautiful connection. But he's also hiding from the world on this tiny island. And then Case and Sylvie discover in the front of an old book that perhaps their mothers might have been friends, and this is something that they have hidden from their daughters. So it's a book that has a few mystery strands in it. It's a book about those really soul-deep connections that women can have, particularly when they're young, on sort of that cusp of adolescence when you feel things so strongly. It's a book about the sort of fallible nature of memory. It's a book about trauma, and it's a book about words and books and stories, and how all of those things have the power to really heal and change lives, really.
Yeah, no, that's a great summary. Yeah. Just wondering if you got a little bit of the book you'd like to read to us.
Yeah, sure. I can read you the sort of the opening where we meet Sylvie. Chapter 1. Friend. Noun. Someone attached to another by feelings of affection or personal regard. Sometimes the words were light, like tissue paper. She could feel them brush her skin, a sweet caress. Other times they were dark and heavy, stones or rotting bones to be carried deep in your gut. Sylvie didn't know if other people experienced words like she did. She assumed everyone held a word in their mind and felt its tiny pulse, felt them under their skin, in their eyes, pricking to tears. Sylvie had long ago found the word to describe what she was, a logophile. The list of her beloved words sat in her heart like a balm. Elixir, lullaby, eloquent, pristine, ethereal. But it wasn't just words. Everyone thought her job was boring. Don't you get depressed going into people's homes after they've died? You're too smart to be a cleaner. But they didn't understand what she really did, which was to find people's stories. Stories were hidden everywhere if you only cared to look, to listen. She collected the stories of the dead like an archaeologist digging up treasures. Everyone had one. They were hidden in the bags of clothing Sylvie emptied from wardrobes, the shoe boxes she found at the back of cupboards, filled with letters, even in the piles of unpaid bills to be cleared from tabletops. She couldn't bear for the stories to be lost. She'd read once that stories only survived 3 generations, and then they were gone, blown away by the winds of time. The proof? What does anyone know of their grandmother's mother?
No, thanks for reading that. I'm just wondering, what was the first idea that came into your head for the beautiful words?
I knew I wanted to write a book about writing. I have been a writer since I could, probably, I think I had diaries and journals when I was, 6, 7, and my daughter's the same, interestingly. And I started writing this during COVID, and I think I just felt, I started writing poetry, and words seemed really important to me when the world seemed to be falling down, when all that COVID stuff was happening. And I just wanted to, that opening that I read you, I just wrote that in my journal. It came out really, it just flowed out. And I was like, that's a really strong voice, that person. I wonder who she is. And I had an image of her on a beach, and she was with a man, and he was drawing in the sand. And I was like, he's a sand poet. And that was Holden. And so I just sort of followed those 2 threads. And somehow it was amazing, this story. I've written a few books now, and this one just felt like an incredible gift. It just sort of flowed out of me. It was quite amazing. And also, I think the fact that I wrote it during the first COVID lockdown, I was very sort of ensconced in my own little bubble, and it was probably an amazing escape for me. And I feel like Sylvie was sort of my cipher to just really indulge my love of language and books and stories. And I reread like Catcher in the Rye and The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. And I think those were sort of the immediate inspirations. But I also, as I was starting to formulate it, realized that I was exploring what happens when you have a friendship that sort of falls apart and you don't really know why. And I think probably everyone can think back to a time when there's someone in their life that meant a lot to them, and you're just not friends anymore. And sometimes it's just a natural progression. You grow apart, one of you has children, something, and other times it's quite abrupt. And you think, did I say something or what happened? And I think I've had probably 2 friendships like that, where I do think back and think, I wonder what went wrong there, and I sort of missed them for a long time. And so I just thought, yeah, what would it be like if one of those friends contacted me 23 years later? Would I go and meet with them? I don't think I could say no, because I'd be so curious, like, what happened with us?
And it didn't make you want to reconnect?
Yeah, I mean, the friend that I'm sort of mainly thinking of, she wrote me an email to sort of break up with me. So I don't feel like
So
I could
it was
ever
yeah.
reconnect with her.
Yeah.
And it's not for her. I've sort of laid that to rest.
Yeah.
But there's been other friends. Like, I had a very good friend at high school, and we just went our separate ways. But I'd love to see her again. And I don't know whether she's a big reader these days, or whether she, you know, read the book or anything, but that would be quite cool if she was like, hey, I read the book.
Yeah.
And I recognized, like, you know, the whole waiting outside a sports girl for your friend, you know. So I did use some of those things as inspiration. My own teenagehood.
And also, quite a big story in this book is someone who's had lost memory through trauma. Is that something that you knew, someone who had experienced that, or when you were writing, did you find people who had to maybe find their...
Yeah. I did a lot of research. I think being a journalist and also having been a medical reporter for quite a while, I feel quite comfortable in that realm, as in I feel like I can do the research. I know how to try and make it seem real, because I've had to write about medical stuff in a journalistic sense, even though I'm not a doctor. So I think that helps. But I do remember reading a story in The Good Weekend about a woman who had an accident and come off a bike, and she had lost her short-term memory and just had this traumatic brain injury, and she walked with a bit of a limp. And when I read that, I just knew that was going to feed into who my character was. So I read very widely in the news and that kind of thing, because you do hear people's real stories, and you just pick up little bits that make it real, because it's actually based on the experience of someone that you've read about.
And we've got quite a few people watching. Just reminding the people watching that if you type a question in comments for Vanessa, I'll read it out and you'll have a chance to win a copy of The Beautiful Words. So we do have a few questions and a few comments. Marg said she's just finished The Beautiful Words last night, very late, as she couldn't put it down, and she loved it, and she's looking forward to reading more of Vanessa's books.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad you liked it.
And Jill is wondering if you've got another book in the pipeline.
I do. I'm just finishing it, actually. And it's been challenging because it's set in France.
Okay. That would have been a bit hard with not being able to go.
To go to France.
Yeah.
But it's actually set on another small island. I don't know, I like small islands for some reason, off the west coast, and I lived on that island as a 19-year-old.
Oh, okay.
And so I have been there. My mum has been sending me all these pictures of like me on the island at 19, and so it's been quite a nostalgic exercise, and nice to kind of escape to France. But at the same time, I've just been dying to just go there.
Yeah.
And I just, like with The Beautiful Words that's set on Bruny Island and in Tasmania, I wrote the first draft not having been there, but then in between the first and second drafts, I just managed to slip in with all the border closures, and so I did go there. And so
why did you choose that location if you hadn't been there before?
I have been to Tasmania. I haven't been to that place, but I have sort of been trekking in Tasmania and stuff, and it's so unspoiled, untouched. I love really like wild kind of weather. I'm more like less like tropical sunshine, more like wild sort of seas and stormy, which is, as you know, reading the book, you know, all that atmosphere. I think it's just ripe for kind of, yeah, creating an atmosphere that is dramatic, and, you know, Sylvie's emotional journey is quite tumultuous, and it was really great to be able to reflect that in the surroundings, in the sense of place. And also, when I was in lockdown, I was dreaming of not being in Sydney, because it was just like, I just wish I was on this tiny island, because it's the place that Case has her 40th birthday is based off a real place that is actually just off Bruny Island. It's called Satellite Island, and you can hire it. You can hire it for parties and things, and I think you can kind of have, I don't know, 10 people or something. And so I was just looking at it, just longing to be on this tiny private island. And, you know, you can go oyster shucking, and
nice.
it's just the whole thing you have to yourself. And so that was definitely the inspiration as well, just that sense of escapism.
And Belinda says the covers of all your books are beautiful. Do you get to select the design or choose a style?
Oh, thank you. No. The short answer is not really. They come to you and they say, this is the cover, we really love it, what do you think? And I've just been lucky enough that I have loved all my covers, particularly this one. It's just, yeah, it's very, very beautiful.
I liked how it's looking like it is like a journal with the ring binding stuff on the side.
The binding,
yeah,
which has a really strong thematic sort of link. Interestingly, in the original, they have like a little pencil just here.
Oh, okay.
Which didn't quite work, but I appreciated the thought. So you do get that sort of input. Like I was like, really love it, but can we lose the pencil? So it's just, you get the refining of it. But the woman that did that, Hazel Lamb, is an award-winning book cover designer with HarperCollins. I think she won like, I think it was Best New Cover Design or Cover Art last year or the year before. So as soon as I knew that she was doing the cover, I was like, oh, it's going to be good.
Belinda wonders how you choose your characters' names.
I think the names are very early on in the process. So it's really hard once you've started a book and your editor might say, can we change the name? You're like, no. It's like, it feels like trying to change the name of a real person. Like, you just can't do it. And interestingly, in this book, her name's Sylvie, but there was some discussion about making her name Sylvia, because there's a big thematic link to Sylvia Plath. And I just, and quite a few, like my editor and a few, they're all like, let's do it, change. And I just said, I can't do it. I can't actually change her name. Sylvia feels really sort of heavy and an older woman. Sylvie is like light. And this book is about the sound and the feeling of words. I just can't change her name. And they said, okay, that's fine. You can keep Sylvie. But yeah, I think I do like S names, I think, because I've had a few S names. And maybe, yeah, I'm not sure where the names come from. They just sort of pop into my head, and they're part of the character's evolution in some senses. And it's a bit of a mystery as to why they just have that name. I don't know. I wish I could answer that more succinctly.
Yeah. And Kelly wonders if one of the characters is your favourite.
I think Sylvie and Holden.
Yeah.
They're they're quite broken characters, but they have such beautiful hearts, and they've actually been through a lot, and they have sort of had to dig deep and really be brave. And yeah, I think they're actually the favorite two characters that I've ever written.
Yeah.
Like, I feel really like motherly about them.
Yeah. And Jill wonders what you like to read yourself. Do you have any favourite genre? And I'm also wondering maybe if there's something you've read lately you want to recommend to us.
What have I read? I read really, really widely. So I'll read everything from, more literary fiction to, I wouldn't say I read particular genre fiction, but I do like a sort of fun, light-hearted read as well. So I'm just trying to think. So an example of both of those would be with the literary fiction. I just finished Wild Abandon by Emily Beto, whose first book, The Strays, is one of my absolute all-time favourites. And then I was like, okay, that was really intense, amazing but intense. So then I read a new book that's actually just come out called Burnt Out by Victoria Brookman, and that's a new HarperCollins debut. And it's just a really light summer read, but sort of the idea is about the bushfires that happen in the Blue Mountains. And so, yeah, I tend to do that. I think I'll go for something really heavy. Like I've got Crossroads by Jonathan Franzen up next, because now I've read my light one. Now I'm going to go for the heavy literary. I don't know. I just really like to have all of that input. And so I kind of probably can't classify a type of book that I would go towards, but I don't think that I would read anything. I can't really say that, but I don't know. And also I have a lot of author friends as well, and so they'll send me their sort of ARC copies and stuff. And so there's an amazing community, and so I'm constantly reading all these books of friends of mine, which is amazing. But that also makes me sometimes read outside my preference because it's a friend, but I do like Australian writers as well. I really like to support Aussie writers. Just trying to think of some of the amazing books I've read lately. I'm actually reading this really old book that my auntie gave me to try and inspire me about France, and it's called Au Revoir by Mary Moody, which was written in like 1999 or 2000 or something. But it's a little bit like one of those memoirs that's set in Tuscany or whatever. And it's just so escapist. And I'm just reading about these 5-course French meals and
and
so
wishing
good.
you were there.
Yes, exactly. And I'm like, this is fabulous. I'm definitely, like, it's making me feel more confident about writing about France because it's just so nice to escape there.
And Mark wonders, when you started writing, did you know how your book was going to end?
I think in my early books, I never, I'm a pantser, so I just start writing and see where it goes. But I think as I've gone on, I've realised the importance of sort of having a little bit more of an idea. So I think with The Beautiful Words and with the one I'm writing now, I just have an overall sense of where it's going to go, but not the specifics, if you know what I mean. So there's still room for, I guess, inspiration to strike and changes to be made, but I sort of know how it all fits together in a bigger way. But usually that won't come to me until I'm about maybe a quarter of the way through.
Okay.
So the first little bit is just usually me muddling in the dark, just thinking, oh, why am I doing this? It's so hard.
Yeah, yeah. And
Um,
Kelly said she loved your previous two books, and she wonders out of the three if you have a favourite, and also was there one that was easier to write than the others?
oh, that's a great question, and thank you for reading my other two. Yeah, I think this one is my favourite,
Mm,
and that this one was the easiest. And I don't really know why that is, because the beautiful words I'm referring to here, and then the one I'm working on now has felt really hard because
oh, really? Yeah.
the beautiful words just flowed out so easily.
Mm,
Um,
that's interesting, yeah.
and so it's not, I don't think it's a matter of each book gets easier. I don't
Mm,
think it works like that. I think each book has its own sort of unique journey.
mm,
And the beautiful words, I do remember saying to my husband, I want to write a really beautiful book. I want to
mm,
write something beautiful. I mean, that was the simple thing I had in my head. And I think that's because COVID was just happening and everything was just so hard and scary. And look, there's definitely some darker issues and things in this
mm,
book, but I think overall the feeling is definitely one of beauty and hope. So I think this one would have to be my favourite so far.
mm, yeah. And Jill is wondering if you have a regular writing routine.
Um, Not lately, not during school holidays.
Yeah.
Yeah, when my daughter's back at school, I try and be quite disciplined.
Mm,
I used to write a lot in cafes, so I'd break up my day and sort of maybe go to a cafe and write for 2 hours, and then maybe come home and have lunch, and then get another hour done in the afternoon or something like that. But I feel like with COVID, everything's just sort of made everything a bit of a shambles.
yeah.
But I had an amazing experience at the end of last year where I went to Varuna, the writer's house in Katoomba. It's this amazing old house that's been bequeathed to sort of Sydney or local Australian writers. And you spend a week there with a couple of other writers. And really all you do is you can just write the whole time.
Oh, really?
Like,
Yeah.
you get like there was sort of a silence thing between when you wake and 6 p.m. at night, and so I just felt like that was such a gift for me because I'd
Mm,
really struggled with creativity during all the second wave COVID stuff, and struggling after having the beautiful words just fall out of me so easily, and so that really helped me realize that you just need sometimes that to be given that space
mm,
to just let your creativity just come out and not force anything. Like I didn't have anyone asking me for snacks. I didn't have to
mm.
cook for a week. It was so
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
But I do think that having a routine is really key to just
Mm,
getting the book done. And so, I
mm,
mean, I must have a decent routine because I have nearly got this second one done. But if it wasn't for that retreat, I never would
would
be
it?
in this
Yeah.
position.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you mentioned snacks. I'm wondering if there is a favourite snack or drink you have when you're writing.
Oh, you know what? Because this next book is set in France, um, I ordered some French tea bags.
Okay.
So I've been drinking this really yummy, expensive French
Mm,
tea. And what do I eat? I don't know. I feel like I just drink mainly a lot of tea. And yeah, like snacks is sort of, I don't like eat chocolate or anything like that or anything
mm,
unhealthy because I feel like I'm in quite an unconscious place and I just feel like I'd just be eating it without knowing that I'd eaten like a
yeah.
whole block. So I sort of try and avoid that. But yeah, I don't
Mm,
know.
mm. And had you always wanted to be a writer?
Yeah, I think so. I can't remember this, but I remember my friends say that when I was in cadet school as a journalist, we all had to get up and say, you know, what we wanted to do. And everyone was like, I want to be the editor and I want to, I don't know, do this and that. And apparently I got up and said, I want to write books. And everyone's like, what are you doing being a journalist? So I don't remember that, but I think I must have at some point always had it in my head that I would love to write books. But because you can't really do just like a course or something that teaches you how to write a book, it sort of seems a bit pie in the sky. And so it's not until you actually try doing it, I think, that you realize, oh, wow, it actually worked. That's a miracle.
And what do you think about reading reviews?
Oh, I hate that. I don't read them.
You don't, yeah.
So I feel very, I'm very sensitive, and I feel like it doesn't take much for me to give up. And so I made a concerted decision as soon as I published my first book to just never like go on Goodreads. But my husband reads me out the beautiful reviews.
Oh, that's nice.
So
yeah.
he just skips over any negative ones and he just goes, oh, there's a really beautiful review in here for you today.
That's good to have someone vet them all for you. And
yeah, I think so. And I mean, it probably sounds a bit spineless in a way, but I just, you know, I have so many negative voices hounding me anyway. And I know that every writer is going to have people that just don't like what you do.
Exactly.
It's just the way of things. But the way my brain works is I can have 100 amazing reviews, and then there's one that says something bad, and my brain just locks on the one, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
But it's par for the course to have bad reviews, sadly.
And what does a successful writer mean?
Oh, that's a great question. I suppose, it's hard. I mean, I suppose success can be defined in lots of different ways. I mean, you could say Leanne Moriarty as a successful writer. But I mean, I think just if someone's a writer, full stop, even if they're writing in their journal every day, or they're, I don't know, trying to write a novel and they get a whole day's work done, I mean, that's success, really. I think in many ways, the act of writing is the thing unto itself. Like, it's hard, but it's so rewarding. I think, for me anyway, I don't even know what I think about something in some senses until I write it. Like, it's the act of writing that kind of makes things clear to me and gives things meaning. And so, yeah, maybe a successful writer is just someone that tries to write and does. You know, I think there's, you know, it's hard. Like, of course, I'd love to be, you know, Leanne Moriarty, but you've kind of got to just go, well, I'm really grateful to just be published. And someone might say, well, I'm really grateful to have finished this novel that I've been working on for 10 years. And even if it doesn't get published, like, how amazing that you wrote a book.
And what advice would you give a new writer?
I think write from the heart. So just don't think, oh, how is this going to fit into some publishing market, or what is the trend that's happening at the moment? Because publishing is such a slow industry and it's such a long haul that you just can't do that. Even if you wanted to, you can't. So I do think that everyone has a story to tell. Like it's just finding the truth in your own story, I think, and telling the truth. So when you say something that is true to you, I think a lot of the time it resonates with other people. And to me, books and reading is about that connection that you have with the writer, where you're just going, oh, yes, that's exactly how that feels. I've never had anyone articulate that for me before. But it's such an incredible moment of connection. And so I think for a new writer, I would say just sort of, be honest and tell your own story and write from the inside out rather than what you think is the outside in, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. No.
And read a lot. Read
a lot. Great advice. And do you ever get writer's block?
Yes.
And what do you do when you do?
Well, I think the book about France that I'm nearly finished, I had a lot of writer's block with this book, but I think that a lot of it had to do with COVID. So I think I was just emotionally exhausted, and that really depleted my creativity. And so I think in some senses, I think writer's block, the answer to that is to just put the writing down and to go and live your life for a little while, and to fill up that empty cup. Because if you're not feeling inspired, not that I think you have to be inspired the whole time to write, because you definitely aren't. Sometimes you just have to sit there and write. But if you're really blocked, you just have to walk away, and you have to go into nature and connect with nature. You have to connect with friends and family, and you have to find a way to connect that to yourself. I think those three things are really important. I mean, I think they're important just in life in general to have those three things. But for me, if I'm feeling really stuck, I go for a walk in nature and I ring a friend. And I feel like that always really helps me.
And like you said, you like walking and that, but what do you like to do to relax when you're not writing?
Well, I do like reading a lot. I spend a lot of time reading. I mean, I just love it. I love escaping into other worlds. But I do love, meeting up with friends for a coffee or a drink and talking, spending time with my family. My daughter's 11. We go for, we do go to the beach a lot and go walking or swimming. But because of COVID, that's sort of, how things roll these days. What else do I like to do? I don't even know. What do I like to do? I love traveling. And so I've done quite a lot of little trips, just around sort of just outskirts of Sydney and stuff. Like every school holidays, my daughter and I would go somewhere with friends, or
could you recommend somewhere that maybe you weren't aware of before, that for other people to go and visit?
I love, like, around Sydney, I love sort of Kangaroo Valley. My cousin has a holiday house there, and so I'm really lucky to be able to go and stay there probably once or twice a year.
Oh, nice.
And that's just gorgeous. It's really sort of, quite remote, but not too far from Sydney. And you can go past sort of Berry and, have a lovely meal. That's one of my hobbies, eating. I love, I love making food I don't love cooking, but I love sharing food with people. And Kangaroo Valley, I love the South Coast. So you'll remember maybe from The Lost Summers of Driftwood, that's set on the South Coast. And I really do love that part of the world. I think we went down to, what's it called? It's down near Kiama, the Kiama area, which I'd never been there before, but there's some beautiful little hidden beaches, and it's just got that slightly wild sort of coastline. There's so many gorgeous places that you can go and visit. Yeah.
And what have you found so far as the most difficult part of your writing process?
I think actually putting the book out into the world
Yeah.
is the hardest. Yeah, it's I'm quite a shy, reserved person, better suited to writing in a room by myself
And
than
would you say that's because you're anxious on what people will think about it?
a little bit, yeah. Yeah, certainly for the first two books, I was very anxious, like, will people like this book? And just opening yourself up to, you know, criticism and that kind of thing, and just having expectations that I hope people buy this book and like it. But interestingly, with The Beautiful Words, I felt very calm about this one. There wasn't as much sort of neediness in terms of like, oh, I just thought I had to write this book. I've written it. I'm going to put it out there. And so it felt easier. But with the other two, it was very anxious making. And also I think I'm getting a little bit more used to like doing things like this, talking about my process.
Yeah.
When you first do it, it's really hard. Like, public speaking doesn't come naturally to all authors, but we're sort of expected to be able to squirrel away by ourselves and also be in a public forum, and those things don't always sit very easily side by side. So,
and for this book, what sort of things have you been able to do for promoting it?
not a lot. I think I was really hoping to have a book launch, but just the way COVID is, yeah, it's very tricky. Like, I think bookshop owners are not sure about whether anyone would come. It's just that real time of uncertainty. So I'm still hoping that maybe I can have one in February or something. I don't know. It depends what Omicron decides to do. But yeah, I've done a lot of online things, which has been amazing.
Yeah.
But certainly not as many in-person things as my first book, which came out before COVID. So
altogether, yeah.
that was back in the good old days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, just reminding people before we finish off, if you do have any questions for Vanessa, please type them in comments and you'll have a chance to win a copy of The Beautiful Words. Before we finish, do you want to let people know how they can keep in touch with you?
Yeah, sure. So I've got a Facebook page, which is just Vanessa McCausland author, and my surname is spelled. Oh, that's probably backwards, is it?
No, it's the right way around. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, that's my surname. So just, Vanessa McCausland author. And then my Instagram handle is also Vanessa McCausland. So I quite often post on both those things, just about different stuff. And yeah, it'd be lovely to connect.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for joining us. And as I mentioned before, you've been involved with Global Girls Online Book Club before, so great to have you back again and hope to get you involved again another time.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Jackie. It's such a pleasure talking to you.
And just wanted to, for those who missed at the start, just wanted to say again what a great read The Beautiful Words is, and I gave it 5 stars. So everyone go out and make sure you read a copy.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone, and thanks for the questions we had.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, bye.